It's somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m. You're not asleep. You already knew you wouldn't be. The last message came hours ago. Something perfectly normal, nothing alarming. And yet, here you are, completely awake, building something in your head that you know isn't real. You've probably already thought, I know I'm doing this. You've probably already told yourself it's fine, that they're just asleep, that you're spiraling over nothing. And you're still awake. That gap between knowing and stopping is exactly what this video is about. Not the label, not the checklist, the actual experience from the inside. And the reason that understanding it differently is the one thing that might actually change something. Let's slow this down for a second. Because what happens between I notice I haven't heard from them and it's 3 a.m. and I'm still awake is not random. It's not weakness. It's not you being too much. It's a sequence. And it runs the same way almost every time. It starts with a signal, something small, a message that didn't come when you expected it, a reply that was shorter than usual, a tone that felt slightly off, maybe, or nothing at all. Just silence where there was sound before. That signal hits something, not your thoughts, your body. There's a tightening, somewhere in the chest or the stomach. A kind of low-level alarm that starts before you've consciously registered anything. And then the mind catches up. It starts building, constructing a story about what the silence means. They're pulling away. Something shifted. That last thing you said, was it too much? Was it not enough? Are they talking to someone else? Are they deciding right now, while you're lying here, that this isn't what they want? You know, somewhere, that this is probably not true. And you cannot stop building it anyway. Here is the part that makes it worse. The self-awareness doesn't help. You can watch yourself doing it and still do it. You can narrate every step of the spiral and still spiral. You can know, intellectually, that the silence means nothing and still feel in your body like something is wrong. That double layer, I know this is too much and I can't stop, is the part that nobody talks about. And it's the part that tends to feel most like evidence of something permanently, specifically wrong with you. It isn't, but to understand why, we need to go a layer deeper. So let's talk about what's actually happening at 2 a.m. Not metaphorically, mechanically. Your nervous system, the one running underneath your thoughts, underneath your self-awareness, underneath everything you know about attachment theory, is doing its job. The problem is, the job it learned to do was designed for a completely different situation than the one you're actually in. Research on attachment, and there's a significant body of it now, consistently shows that anxious attachment doesn't develop from weakness. It develops from a specific early experience. Love that was available, but not reliably so. Not absence. Inconsistency. A caregiver who was warm and present sometimes, distant or distracted other times, and whose emotional availability you couldn't predict. What a child's nervous system does in that situation is exactly what any intelligent system would do. It starts monitoring, constantly, for signals. Are they okay? Are they close? Is everything fine between us? What's their tone? Are they pulling back? What do I need to do right now to make sure I don't lose this? That vigilance, that hyper-awareness of the other person's state, was not a flaw. It was the correct adaptation. It kept the connection alive. It worked. And your nervous system never got the memo that the situation changed. So when someone you care about goes quiet, even briefly, even innocuously, the same system activates. The same monitoring begins. The same alarm that protected you then fires now, in a body that is decades older, in a relationship where the stakes are genuinely different. This is why knowing you have anxious attachment doesn't stop the 2 a.m. Because the 2 a.m. isn't run by the part of you that knows things. It's run by the part of you that learned things, long before you had language for any of it. That's not a flaw, that's a response, and it makes complete sense. Let's talk about why that matters. Because once you understand the mechanism, the 2 a.m. stops being evidence of something wrong with you and starts being a message. A very specific one. That thing you've been experiencing, the I know this is too much and I can't stop it, has a name now. It's not a character defect. It's the gap between your cortex and your nervous system. The part of you that learned, and the part of you that knows. Both present, both real, running at different speeds. The knowing part watches. The learned part drives. And the reason the knowing doesn't stop the driving is not because you lack discipline or insight or willpower. It's because you're trying to use one system to override a different, older, faster system. And that is genuinely, neurologically hard. Here is what I want you to actually sit with. The fact that you lie there at 2 a.m., aware of the spiral, trying to talk yourself down, exhausted by the trying. That is not the evidence of someone who is broken. That is the evidence of someone who is trying to protect something they value with every tool they currently have. The spiral isn't about them, actually. Not really. It's about the part of you that learned, very early, that connection is fragile, that the people you love can be present and then not present, that you have to stay alert, because relaxing is when you lose things. The 2 a.m. is your nervous system doing its job. The job it was given a long time ago, by circumstances that were real, by an attachment system that was doing its best. The pattern doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean you're too much. It doesn't mean you're going to ruin this. It doesn't mean you're fundamentally unsuited to the kind of relationship you want. It means you have a nervous system that was shaped by real experience. And that nervous system hasn't yet learned that the current situation is safe enough to let the vigilance down. That's the beginning of the whole thing. If what this video is describing is something you recognize in yourself, not just as a concept, but as a lived experience, there's a resource in the description called Calm Attachment. It's built specifically for this. Not the label, not the theory, but the practical tools for interrupting the cycle in early dating, when the anxiety is loudest. 7 specific practices for the exact moment the spiral starts. Link is in the description and the pinned comment. Now let's talk about what you can actually do with this, tonight or the next time it comes. Not as a cure, not as a promise that it won't happen again, just as a genuine next move. Here's the distinction that actually matters. Knowing you have anxious attachment is the label. Understanding that your nervous system is running a protection protocol it learned before you could read, that is the mechanism. And you can't work with a label, you can work with a mechanism. Because once you know what the system is doing and why, you can do something different from trying to think your way out of it. You can work with the body instead. The next time the spiral starts, before you do anything else, name what's happening out loud, or in your head, or in your notes app at 2 a.m., not "I'm anxious" specific. My nervous system has detected an ambiguous signal and is running a threat assessment. This is the old protocol. The situation right now does not require it. That's not magic. That's not going to stop it immediately, but it does something the thinking without naming doesn't do. It puts you slightly outside the mechanism instead of inside it. You become the one watching the alarm, not the alarm itself. And then, this part is important, you don't try to fix the feeling. You let the nervous system do what it needs to do. You breathe with it, not against it. You treat it the way you would treat a very young part of yourself that is scared and monitoring and doing the only thing it knows how to do. That's not you being weak. That's accurate, because that is, in some real sense, what's happening. Anyone who's been there knows. The spiral doesn't respond to logic. It responds to felt safety. And felt safety, the real kind, the kind that eventually makes the 2 a.m. quieter, doesn't come from the relationship outside you. It comes from learning, slowly and with practice, that you can be with your own nervous system without being destroyed by it. That is not a small thing to learn. It is actually the whole thing. If you want the specific tools for interrupting the cycle, not the theory, the practice, Calm Attachment is in the description, built exactly for the gap between understanding this and actually moving differently. What does the 2 a.m. spiral look like for you? Is it the thoughts that take over first, or the body? Before you go, there's something worth saying carefully. You came into this video carrying something. Maybe the fresh exhaustion of last night, maybe the longer exhaustion of knowing this has happened before, and before that, and wondering when it stops. Here is what's true, and what this video has been building toward. The 2 a.m. is not evidence of being too much. It is evidence of a nervous system that learned, very early, that love requires vigilance, that connection is not guaranteed, that the way to keep the people you care about is to stay alert, stay attuned, stay ready. That learning came from somewhere real. It protected something real, and it has been running faithfully ever since, in situations that no longer require it, toward people who are not the source of the original lesson, at a cost you have been paying for a long time. The version of you who is genuinely ready for connection, not healed, not fixed, just no longer carrying this as proof of something wrong, is not a different person. It's this person, with one thing changed. What you believe the 2 a.m. means. You were never the problem. The vigilance was never a flaw. It was a survival skill that outlived its usefulness. And survival skills that outlived their usefulness can be unlearned. Not overnight, not through insight alone, but through the slow, patient work of teaching a nervous system that it is, finally, actually safe enough to put the monitoring down. You've probably already felt this part. The part that knows the vigilance is costing more than it's protecting. That knowing, that exhaustion with your own alarm system, that isn't the problem either. That's the beginning of the whole thing.